Hello there and welcome to the video. Now, I am preparing a few pattern recognition videos, but I thought the time was right to do another viewer game. Another of my viewers, long-time viewer and friend, sent me one of his games, and his name is Steve Farmer. Now, I've known Steve through the internet, through a nice community on chessvideos.tv for a long time. Unfortunately, that page didn't, well, like many pages on the internet, did not pass the test of time, but it was a fun page. And I was making videos there. Greg Shahari was doing videos, and Steve Farmer as well. So, like, even though I never met Steve, I feel like I know him, and it would be nice to meet sometimes. Anyway, he played a game, and this was played in the Millionaire tournament. For those that remember that one, it was played in Las Vegas. Some of my friends went from Iceland. I couldn't make it, and was hoping to make it through to another edition of the tournament, but the tournament, well, it's not around anymore. Anyway, so as fate would have it, Steve drove from Tucson, Arizona with one of his friends, and they got paired in the last round, which is very unlucky. And sometimes this happens. You go to a tournament, you want to play somebody that you don't know, or get a new challenge, and in the last round he plays somebody he has played 100 rated games against, because they play in the same club. And his opponent is an expert over the board and an ICCF master, which is correspondence. So this is the final round, and whoever wins the game will get some prize money, at least enough to pay the expenses. So, well, they knew before the game that a draw made no sense. Knew each other quite well. So let's see what happens. So Steve had the white pieces. Played e4. His opponent played e6. And the French defense, d4, d5, knight c3, the most principled move, and now bishop to b4. And this is something I really like, the Vinegar variation of the French. One of my favorite variations, indeed. And, well, they had, like he said, they had played, like 100 games, and they had played, this variation many times. If white plays e4 and plays knight c3, if your opponent plays this, it's going to happen a lot of times. And I had the same situation with one of my friends, Grandmaster Thoraldsson. We actually played in the Icelandic League a few weeks ago. I can link to that game. And we had this position we've had so many times in classical chess. And he keeps switching up. Sometimes he plays e5 in the main line. Sometimes this. Last time he took on d5, he's played queen d3, he's played a3. Different moves. Seems to be the same situation here with Steve and his friend. I think his name is Ed. But Steve played queen g4 here. I think this is attributed to Alekhine. I'm not completely sure, but this is a very direct move. Just directly attacking this pawn. The bishop has moved, much like in queen pawns openings when you play c4, queen b3, and this is under attack. So black has to react forcefully. This, you can't just protect the pawn, looks bad because the center isn't closed. You can do it sometimes when the center is closed. Bringing the bishop back, loses time. So knight f6, black gambits the pawn, white accepts the challenge, rook g8, queen h6. So here black has a choice. He can take on e4 or play rook g6. I think both moves are very plausible. The c5 is also an idea. So these kinds of moves are all possible. I don't really care what the theory is. Actually, this is one of the lines that gets very rarely played against me. So it's been a long time since I checked the theory, and maybe I should. So maybe I will. So rook g6. Queen shoots back to e3. think white has actually a choice here. Queen h4 could be played, but I think queen e3 is definitely the main move. And that's what Steve played. And now d takes e4. It looks more natural to take with a knight. Again, c5 could be played. I think when I get this in blitz, I usually play c5. And I haven't been too worried about this line, but still, it's a little bit annoying. I'm not gonna lie. But his opponent, he took on e4 with a pawn, and now Steve played a3. My database, the online database says bishop d2 is the most common move, but a3 makes a lot of sense. You're asking black the question: do you want to take, give us the bishop pair, or do something else? Actually, bishop a5 looks fine here. Keeping the pin, maybe going for some counterattack in the center, and if b4, the bishop just shoots back, and we have pressure on this. But black went for something different. He played bishop f8, which I kind of don't like. You can play this in a different variation, and maybe he mixed up lines, and we can, I hope I remember the theory actually. But let's go back. There is a line here where white goes bishop d2. We take, and now white plays queen g4. I think we not take this. Let's try, I think castles. Knight f6, right? And queen takes d7, rook g8, queen h6. And here black goes bishop f8. And it's important to go bishop f8 because the main line is this here. Queen takes f2. I think it's, bishop e2, rook h4. And here white actually takes the queen and then traps the black queen with g3. Funky line. But now the idea of bishop f8 is to play queen h6. And it was David Bronstein who played this first for black. And black gets very good play for the exchange. He has a lot of pawns. And he won a nice game in this line. So I'm wondering if black maybe mixed up lines a little bit with his bishop f8 move. Seems plausible that, he mixed it up with the other line. Which is kind of similar, but here bishop f8 makes less sense because you're not, this is not coming. So I don't know what the idea is really. And you take away the pressure, so white can now just play knight takes e4. And the downside of that is that white is now just up a pawn. The king side has been damaged and the king is stuck in the center. So black needs to get some play, and bishop f8 doesn't seem to be the way to follow up on this way to play for black. Okay, so black, he's down a pawn. He's trying to get some initiative, knight d5. And here Steve plays queen b3, and I think in his notes he, by the way, he had very nice analysis on this game, so I didn't really. I'm just going to project those analysis mostly and give my thoughts. I agree that queen b3. Now he didn't want to block his bishop by going here or here. The bishop is stuck. Maybe, especially if you go here, but queen d3 still makes a lot of sense because I think, c4 is coming pretty quick, and if white gets, development, he should be pretty good. Queen b3 also doesn't look too bad, and I think the only downside is because of what black played, queen h4, because now this is attack, this is, behind it. I guess we could play this and then try maybe to trap the rook, I guess, knight g3 or something. Or just sacrifice. I think knight g3 though. Maybe bishop g5? I haven't really looked at this, but maybe there was a similar idea in the game. And if you take it, then knight f3. Am I missing something? I don't think I am. And then we take this. That's one idea. But he played queen d3. So, and he said himself, moving the same piece too many times. Bringing the bishop here would have been a more solid idea. Still, even after this move, I feel white is doing well. I agree with that because, as we'll see, knight c6. Black doesn't even, have a lead in development. He could play something like this, which is interesting, putting this lateral pressure, very unusual, lateral pressure on the fourth rank. White will probably have to sacrifice the pawn back, but I think he should be doing well. Because black, he still has like a crippled, king side. His hand pieces are a bit funny, and he's lagging a bit in development. But he played knight c6, got on with it, knight f3. Steve mentioned that bishop g5 would have been very interesting, intending to play knight f3. I think this would have been good, because after something like this, we just play queen e3, rather than queen d2, because otherwise, I guess, black would take this and this with check, so queen e3, keeping an eye on the knight. And if here now, then here, and we're going to win some material by taking on g5 next. This was definitely a good choice, but Steve went with knight f3, development, queen back, but now we're pushing black back here with c4, knight back. And here was, yeah, a bit of a critical moment. Actually, when I first looked at the game, the first move that came to my mind was the same move that Steve played. Steve played g3. The idea being that, you know, we want to develop the bishop, but the pawn is under attack, so why not fee and carry the bishop and, you know, get castled. And he says, you know, one bad thing about studying an opening too much is you pay attention to patterns too much. And this is the case here. You know, I studied the Vinegar, and you know, in some nights you play this move g3. You know, the stunt on the d-file. Same thing in the Caro-Kann. But I think here the key move for black is to play e5. Get the counterplay, improve the scope of the bishop, get castle queenside, and try to get some counterplay. So after g3, black should probably go e5, but he didn't. So I think bishop f4 was the move for white, to play here and just stunt, you know, black's counterplay. Black still plays too slow. He plays bishop d7. The idea is to get castled, but you know, he's down a pawn. He has to play more aggressively, and e5 is probably the move. And we have an interesting line here, probably something like this. And you know, even though white will be up a pawn, let's say bishop e2 to, you know, unpin the knight, still something like f5 or even just bishop h3, stopping white from castling. Position remains, I think, you know, complicated. Black's gonna castle, and I think, you know, either side can, you know, try to play for a win. It's gonna be an interesting game. But okay, bishop d7 was played by his opponent. Bishop d2, black castled, and now white should definitely castle and then go for an attack. But first he played bishop d2. And here again, you know, this gives black the chance. And this should actually be a question mark, this move, bishop d2. Because black can now play f5 and start pushing on the center. The knight has to retreat. And there's nothing on offer here, because we simply take the knight. And black is going to be happy with this trade. Going to take on d8. And 2 pieces for the rook. So the knight would have to fall back, but then e5. And we see the downside of having the king in the center. Black will get a lot of play, and he might even get the pawn back if we take everything. And if the queen interposes on either square, we can play knight takes c4, get the pawn back. And black is very active. So this was black's chance, but he played h6. And this is just too timid. You know, if you sacrifice a pawn, you have to be willing to go for the initiative. Black is down the pawn here. He has to try to do something with the pawns. But it didn't, and this gives white the chance to build up. b4, again, probably should have castled here. Do we have f5 available now? What's the difference? We played b4. Wondering f5 now. Looks like a similar. I mean, it's slightly different. I haven't figured out what the difference is. But white definitely should have castled, not to allow a move like f5. Maybe knight c5 becomes a little bit stronger now compared to in the position before, because we played b4. In any case, black played bishop e8, and now white finally castles. And I think now the counterplay with e5 is much less dangerous. But the funny thing about bishop e8, and this is the point where, well, I'll quote Steve. He said, it was around this point that I started getting delusions of grandeur. I've always been a fan of the wild sacrifices. You know, Tal was, after all, his favorite player, and one of his favorite games, well, it's one of the best moves ever, was Marshall against Levitsky, the beautiful queen g3, which I'm sure all of you have seen. So, you know, he was starting to get, you know, some ideas here, and, well, we'll see. He wanted black to do what he did, knight takes d4. And this is what happened. One note here though, even though castling is strong, b5 would have been very interesting on account of this possibility, bishop to b4. But this is really difficult to see. And the idea is that the bishop is simply hanging here at the end, but okay. A bit of a computer line maybe, but maybe not too difficult to see though. It's kind of a pattern, but okay. Castles, natural, takes, and e5. And now we're getting somewhere. Knight c5. Black took on d4. And now queen f5 check. I feel like I need to sneeze. One moment. No, okay. It will come. Here, white can definitely play bishop takes b7. But instead he... I told you, I warned you. Instead he played queen to f5. King b8. And now bishop to c3. According to the computer, bishop e3 is probably more accurate, but Steve had an idea. And remember, he mentioned earlier that he had something in mind if black played the freeing move e5. Rook f6. A natural human move, but now things go completely off the rails. And Steve enters the world of alternate reality here with queen takes e5. I'll quote Steve, out of the clear blue sky comes this move. Before I played it, I rolled an imaginary joint on my side of the table. I rolled it up, lit it up, and played the move and offered the imaginary joint to my opponent. He was so taken aback that he didn't take my imaginary offering, but took the real offering on the board. Well, the offering is not a blunder, but white could have played better. But this is the way we want to play chess. So Steve suggests the notation question mark, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, which is crazy because it doesn't exist. And I think that sums up this pot smoking move. So okay, queen takes e5, rook f to e1. And it turns out afterwards, and Steve has analyzed that rook a to e1 would have been the better move. And the reason is that f2 actually needs to be covered in some lines. So rook a e1 would have been a little bit more accurate, but rook f e1 was played. Queen to f5. Actually, the best move was rook takes f2. And the idea is you take the queen, we now interpose this and play bishop c6. The bishop is no longer under attack. It got away with check, with tempo. And then we do something like taking on c4. And the position remains complicated. Steve offered up a line with rook d1. I think bishop b2 is also a move. Having in mind that on bishop d7 we want to retreat. On rook c2, I think there's something like this. Crazy lines. So still complicated. But at least black is well in the game. So queen f5, keeps an eye on the diagonal, keeps an eye on c8. Maybe I'll just show you that if the queen goes somewhere else, something like this. And there are just too many threats. There's this threat, there's this. If the rook moves somewhere, there's check and checkmate. The bishop can come here. So white is going to get material, and he has a lot of threats. Queen f5 was played. Of course, he took the rook with check. And now he took the rook. And yeah, was the other line complete? No, okay. Yeah, can he take on f8 here, like in the other line? Maybe he can. I didn't really check it, but this is a very natural move. You get a rook back, and now you have a rook, bishop, and a pawn for the queen, which is equal material. So we're just playing on equal footing, and white's pieces are excellently placed. So white is actually better here. I mean, this is under attack, so black took on c5. And here, any capture on c5 looks good for white, and he has fantastic piece coordination, and is better according to the computer. B takes c5 is very tempting, just to maybe, after the queen moves, to have something on the b file, because we have the bishop lined up here. But Steve went for bishop takes f6, and he called this sloppy. Now, if queen takes f6, there's rook f1. This didn't happen in the game, and the threat of bishop h3 is very strong. So black took an f2 first, and then played queen takes f6. The rook is attacked on a1, so rook here. And this is one of the reasons why I believe rook a to e1 was better. Rook f1, queen g6. Here, black could have fought on and held on for dear life with bishop f2. And this is just to, lure this one back. We'll see later why this can't be played. So I think rook e2 is best to get this, but then black gets some tempos, plays queen c3, unpins the back rank, makes luft, and he can keep fighting. But after this, white is completely winning. The best move is probably b takes c5, but Steve went for a very tempting move as well, bishop to h3. Threatening on c8, so black played f5. And rook takes c8, and black resigned because, well, after takes, there's going to be bishop takes f5. And, okay, it's too much material, and white wins. So Steve got the prize in the Millionaire Chess Tournament. Very well done indeed. And here Steve offers up sort of, what happened afterwards. Like he mentioned at the start, they're friends, and they, had to drive back to Tucson. A long drive, can't remember how long he said, like 4 or 5 hours at least, I don't know. So after a quick postmortem over dinner, I went to the hotel and to get some sleep. It was past midnight, and we had to hit the road for a long drive home in the hot desert sun. At about 2 or 3 in the morning, I woke up in a cold sweat. I thought to myself, no way, I didn't miss that, did I? Sure enough, after bishop h3, neither Steve nor his opponent saw the simple move. Let's go back. What could Ed have played to spoil Steve's great game? Great sacrifice, and the prize. Yeah, queen c6. Check, and the rook is hanging. Well, after that, on the drive back to Tucson, Steve mentioned this to his opponent in the game. And from then, it was the quietest 400-mile drive he ever had. I believe that. You're driving, you could have played queen takes c6. Anyway, I thought it was a good time because, well, living in Arizona, Steve must be a Phoenix Suns fan, right? Suns in 4? Phoenix Suns are doing pretty good. They might make the NBA Finals, so that would be a fun bonus. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the game. I really liked it. It was fun to get the backstory and, what was going on. So if you have some games you want to share with me and share with the community, be my guest and send me some games, and we'll keep going over viewer games. Anyway, until next time, we should be back with another pattern recognition video soon, and see you then. Bye bye.